Close your eyes, dear listener, and let us slip quietly into the past. Breathe in slowly, and let the present melt away. The hum of electricity, the murmur of modern life, all fades now as we step softly into another world. The year is distant. Perhaps 110 AD, nestled deep within the reign of Emperor Trajan, when Rome stretched its arms across much of the known world. But tonight, we do not stand on marble balconies or dine with senators beneath golden lamplight. No, tonight, we walk a humbler path. The streets are still, dusted with the scent of hearth smoke and olive oil. Clay lanterns flicker dimly at the thresholds of stone homes. The stars glimmer above the 7 hills of Rome, serene and eternal, untouched by the cries that echo in alleyways and servant quarters. For beneath the grandeur of empire lived a multitude whose names have not survived the centuries. Men, women, and children born, not free, but owned. We often speak of Roman slaves. In numbers and roles, millions of lives absorbed into households, fields, quarries, and brothels. But let us pause here, in this quiet hour, and reach for something more tender. Let us try, if only in story, to inhabit the heart of one such soul, not to judge, not to sensationalize, but simply to feel. Imagine, gentle traveler, that you are not waking in your familiar bed tonight. Instead, your rest has been taken on a rough straw pallet in the corner of a cold room crowded with sleeping figures. There are no sheets, no pillows, only the warmth of others curled in sleep, and the thin blanket you've wrapped tightly against the chill. Your name is not your own. Perhaps it was once, in a childhood now distant. But now you are boy or girl, or that one with the scar. You belong to someone else. They may be kind, indifferent, or cruel. It matters little. Their will is the sun by which your life is ruled, and you, like a vine trained to a wall, have grown only in the spaces allowed. Outside a cock crows. The stars begin to fade. In a few breaths' time, the overseer will pass through, calling names, issuing commands. There will be no time for dreaming then. But for this moment, here with me, we can linger. We can imagine the weight of that life, not to frighten, but to understand. Consider the rhythm of a Roman slave's day. It is a cycle of obedience, of enduring the repetition of labor. For some, it means rising before dawn to tend the fires in a patrician's villa, to grind grain by hand, to scrub marble floors until they shine for masters who may never thank them. For others, it means trudging to fields beyond the city, where wheat ripens beneath a sun that shows no mercy, where backs bend and muscles burn and time passes in blisters and calluses. There are slaves who are taught to read, to scribe, to tally. Ledgers in the atrium of wealthy merchants. Yet knowledge does not bring liberty. For them, the mind may be sharper, but the soul is still caged. And there are slaves who know only darkness, those born in the mines of Hispania, in tunnels carved by torchlight, where the air chokes and the future holds nothing but deeper stone. Yet even here, in these lives pressed hard by fate, there is flickering light, a shared joke while sweeping a courtyard, a song murmured while washing garments at the river, the shy smile of someone who, like you, knows the sting of a taskmaster's rod and the sweetness of a kind word. These are the moments that breathe life into survival, that make the unbearable endurable. Sometimes, dear listener, it is easy to imagine that those who lived long ago were somehow different from us, harder, more stoic, less sensitive to pain or fear. But if you listen closely, past the grand histories and bronze statues, you will hear a quieter truth. These were people who loved their children, who missed their mothers, who longed for cool water after a day in the sun, who dreamed of escape. There is one such tale, passed down by Roman poets, of a slave named Cyrus, who labored in the kitchens of a busy villa near the Forum. He was clever, always a step ahead, always watching. He once traded a coin he had found, dropped perhaps by a careless guest, for a bit of saffron to flavor a stew. When his master tasted the dish, he praised it, never knowing the price of the spice. Cyrus said nothing. He merely bowed his head, but in his heart a quiet joy sang. He had done something beautiful. Or consider Livia, a seamstress enslaved in the household of a matron who delighted in silks and drapery. Livia's hands knew the rhythm of the needle, the language of fabric. At night, by candlelight, she would embroider birds in the hems of tunics, tiny, hidden things no one noticed, except her secret rebellion, her quiet artistry. These are small things, yes, but in a life where choices are scarce, the smallest light can be salvation. We will go further, deeper, into such a day. We will walk with these people through their hours, through their labor, their hunger, their fear, and their fleeting comforts. But tonight, in this beginning, let us simply hold space for the soul of the enslaved, not as curiosities, not as figures of pity, but as kindred spirits. Let your heart rest beside theirs. Let your breath slow, and know that even in chains, the human heart can dream. So close your eyes now, if you haven't already. Breathe in again, gently. You are safe, you are free. But for a little while, let us walk as those who are not. Let us remember, and let us begin. Before dawn has even touched the rooftops of Rome, your body stirs from a thin, restless sleep. You lie curled on a floor of packed dirt or cold stone, the scant padding of straw beneath you flattened by many nights and many bodies. Around you, the room is silent but for the slow breathing of others, each bundled beneath threadbare cloths, limbs tangled in unconscious search for warmth. There are no walls of privacy, no cherished possessions nearby, only the closeness of others who share your fate. The air is thick with a mix of sour sweat, mildew, and the faintest hint of smoke drifting in from the embers of the previous night's cooking fire. These quarters are not built for comfort, but for containment. Sometimes it is a dim cellar beneath the house of a wealthy master. Other times, it is a crowded loft above a stable, where the smell of hay mingles with the scent of animals and damp leather. And yet, despite the austerity, this space is the only one that feels like yours, in whatever small way such a word can apply. Sleep is not a sanctuary here. It is a temporary pause from fatigue. Every position bruises bone. Every shift of the body risks waking another. In winter, breath curls visibly in the cold air. In summer, the space grows humid and cloying, thick with the scent of too many lives pressed too close. Even in slumber, your muscles remain coiled with readiness. You learn, over time, to listen even in your dreams, for the sound of a door creaking open, of footsteps, descending stairs, of someone calling out commands in the dead of night. You may have arrived here through war or debt, birth or misfortune. You may remember a home once yours, green hills in Gaul, sunlit vineyards in Achaia, the bustle of a market square where your mother once held your hand. Or perhaps you were born in this shadow, your earliest memory the stern voice of an overseer, your cradle the crook of your sister's arm in this very room. Whichever path brought you here, you now wake beneath the same burden. Sometimes, in the quietest hours before the day begins, you let your mind drift. You imagine a different ceiling above you, a soft voice calling you gently awake. You imagine choosing your own direction when you rise, but the illusion fades quickly, chased away by the knowledge that soon, very soon, your day will belong to someone else. There are those among you who speak little and rise quickly, already preparing for the day ahead with grim resolve. Others linger a moment, pressing hands to tired faces, drawing in one last breath of stillness before the storm of commands. A child stirs beside you, clinging to sleep, unaware of how the day will shape them. And in the corner, an older woman murmurs a quiet prayer, her fingers brushing the worn edge of a small household, idle hidden beneath her blanket. These quarters are more than just sleeping space. They are the fragile nucleus of a life lived on. The margins, in whispered stories shared after sunset, in shared meals of stale bread and olives, in the silent agreement to help one another when the overseer looks away, there is a quiet dignity. Even here, in Rome's lowest places, the human spirit weaves its way into the fabric of each day. You learn the rhythms of this place, who snores and who cries out in their dreams, who rises first and who can never seem to sleep. And you learn, with a strange ache, that this place is the one constant in a life where everything else can be taken away. Outside, the earliest stirrings of the city begin. Carts creak in the streets, roosters crow, and from the far distance, you hear the splash of water in a fountain. Rome is awakening, and soon so must you. But for now, dear listener, we rest just a little longer in this quiet gloom. We imagine the cold against our skin, the straw beneath our hands. We listen to the breath of those around us, and we remember, even in this harshness, the flicker of shared humanity. Let us rise gently. There is a long day ahead. There is no gentle sunrise to greet you, no warm light spilling through shutters, or the aroma of coffee brewing nearby. Instead, the morning comes with a jolt, a barked command, a clang of metal, the sharp crack of a whip against a wooden beam or the ground nearby. You do not need to be struck to understand. The sound alone is enough. Your eyes snap open. Your heart thuds once, sharply, and your body responds before your thoughts can catch up. The overseer's voice cuts through the lingering fog of sleep, coarse and practiced, wielded like a tool. You do not think of ignoring it. To delay, to stumble, is to mark yourself for punishment or ridicule, and so you rise. Bones creak, muscles protest, but you rise. Somewhere in the shadows, someone groans, softly an elder perhaps, or a child still caught in dreams. They will be hurried along, helped or hustled by others who have learned that compassion must be quick and quiet if it is to survive. No one wants to be the reason for delay. There is no real sense of time, only the knowing. You have trained yourself to measure the world not in hours, but in routines. When the sky has only just begun to turn from black to deep violet, when the morning chill still clings to every breath, that is when the first summons arrives. It might be earlier in the countryside, where fields await labor. It might be later in the heart of Rome, where patricians sleep longer. But regardless, your morning always begins with someone else's call. You move with practiced haste, gathering what little belongs to you, a worn tunic, perhaps mended a dozen times, sandals with fraying straps, a length of twine to tie your hair back or sling tools across your shoulder. There is no luxury of decision here. You wear what you are given. You go where you are told. The room that was hushed in sleep is now a flurry of motion, quiet, urgent, efficient. No words are wasted. Eyes meet briefly, conveying silent encouragement or warning. A quick hand straightens a garment. A whispered blessing passes from an older woman to a younger one. These are the graces allowed in a life where everything else is dictated. And then you are out the door, into the courtyard, or the stable yard, or the cramped alley behind the shop where you live and labor. The sky overhead is still laced with stars. The city is stirring, but faintly. Somewhere far off, a temple gong sounds, soft and echoing, like the memory of a dream. Your master may not rise for hours, but you are already at work. For those in urban villas, the first tasks involve preparing the household, sweeping the stone floors, rekindling the hearth fires, drawing water from the well, polishing lamps, and setting out the master's garments. You move quietly, precisely, a shadow within the home. The goal is not only to perform your duty, but to remain invisible while doing it. In the countryside, it is the animals that call first. Chickens must be fed, oxen led from their pens, the vineyard checked for signs of disease or theft. In the winter, ice must be broken from troughs. In the summer, the day's heat will soon become unbearable, so every moment of cool morning air must be used. For some, this hour brings brief solitude. The walk to the fields, the trip to the market. The silence of early sweeping bees becomes sacred spaces, not because they are free, but because they are yours alone for a little while. You might hum a tune remembered from a distant childhood. You might think of someone you love, someone you hope still remembers you. You might pray. There is rhythm in this life, even if that rhythm is imposed. And within that rhythm, many find ways to endure. Some even find meaning. A perfect sweep of the courtyard, a fire that lights in one strike, water carried without a single spills, more victories, quiet triumphs. But none of this changes the truth. This day is not yours. It never was. You live by another's permission, and the dawn that now spills across the city rooftops does not shine for you. Still, you move forward. Because this, too, is survival. Because sometimes that is enough. So we walk with you, dear listener, through this cold morning. We feel the sting of early air on skin. We hear the bark of commands, the rush of feet, the creak of old sandals and heavy buckets. We remember what it is to be needed only for what we can do, not for who we are. And as the sun finally crests the edge of the world, we carry with us a new awareness that even in the harshest dawn, there are hearts still beating, still hoping, still human by the time you step into the first light of morning. The weight of your body reminds you of the previous day and the many days before that. There is a particular kind of weariness known only to those who cannot rest when tired, who must keep moving regardless of pain. Your joints are stiff, your feet tender with calluses, your back bent ever so slightly from burdens too great and rest too short. Each movement is calculated to conserve energy. You roll your shoulders slowly, stretch your arms in small, unnoticeable arcs. If you are lucky, your work will allow for motion that limbers the body. If not, the ache will deepen with every hour. Still, you do what you must. There are rituals, small and sacred, not unlike prayers, though they are rarely called such. Some tie bits of string round their wrists, a gesture passed from mother to daughter to ward off bad fortune. Others touch the earth with their fingers, then their lips, a quiet grounding. One older man you know crosses himself, but not in the way Christians do it, a symbol older than that. something from his homeland across the sea. If you're near a fountain or basin, you cup water in your palms, splash your face. The cold shocks your senses awake. It also washes away the dust of dreams, reminding you, today, again, you are not free. You mutter to yourself as you move little chants or fragments of songs. Words without melody, learned long ago. They help keep the mind sharp. In a life where you own nothing, not even your name, memory becomes a quiet rebellion. To remember your language, your stories, your gods is to insist you still exist. Sometimes others notice. A fellow slave nods to you as you kneel to fasten your sandal. A woman brushes her fingers over a carved token tucked into her belt. These small acts form the threadbare cloth of community. Not chosen family, perhaps, but something close. You look after each other where you can. Even the children mimic these morning rituals. A little boy traces shapes in the dirt with his toe. A girl tucks a pebble into the fold of her garment for luck. They have never known another life, but they sense instinctively that the body needs more than food. It needs meaning. All rituals are spiritual, some are practical, survival habits. Checking the strap on your water jug, loosening your shoulders for the plow, adjusting your pace to fall into step beside someone older, someone slower. These too are prayers, acts of foresight, gestures of endurance. And then there is the breath, the deep inhale before the day begins in earnest. You learn to take it, no matter how brief the pause. To let your lungs fill with air before they're filled with smoke or dust or commands. You hold that breath for a second longer than you need, savoring the illusion of control. You are not alone. Across the empire, in ports and provinces, in villas and valleys, thousands are breathing just like you, standing just like you, bearing the same quiet load. The knowledge doesn't lessen your burden, but it grants a strange, silent solidarity. There is beauty, strange as it may seem, in this moment, not in the suffering, but in the resilience, in the way people find ways to mark time, to claim slivers of their soul even when the world tries to grind it away, in the way they pass down fragments of joy like smuggled treasures across generations. And so you rise, you stretch, you wash, you speak to your gods or none at all. You make ready your body for toil, not because you are free, but because you are still here. Because even under chains, the human spirit finds ways to whisper, I am. The sun climbs slowly, casting long golden fingers through narrow alleyways and across tiled rooftops, but your stomach remains hollow, echoing with the memory of food rather than its presence. Morning meals, if they come at all, are meager crust of coarse barley bread, perhaps, or a handful of olives nearing spoilage. There is no porridge steaming gently in a bowl, no fresh figs served with honey, only dry, hard fare meant to quiet the rumbling within you, not to satisfy. You learn not to expect variety. The body adapts, though it complains. The taste of stale bread becomes familiar, even comforting in its predictability. You chew slowly, letting each bite soften with saliva. Sometimes there is watered wine, not enough to dull pain or spark joy, but just enough to wash down the grainy crumbs. If you serve in a household with a more generous master, you may catch the aroma of breakfast as it is prepared for others, rich flatbreads, cheeses, smoked fish. You may even be tasked with delivering it, balancing trays of warm food, all while your own belly twists with longing. But you do not dare linger. To steal even a scrap risks severe punishment. You learn to tuck your hunger deep inside, to train your senses not to react. In the fields, it is worse. There, you may not eat until mid-morning, after hours of labor have already drained your strength. You wake and walk with nothing but emptiness inside, driven only by will and muscle memory. Some bring a bit of food tucked into folds of cloth scraps, saved from the night before. But these are rare, and you guard them like treasures. There are no spoons or bowls set out with love. No one asks what you'd like this morning. No one offers second helpings. Your food is function, not comfort. And yet, in the act of sharinga, crust split in two, a dried fig passed to a child, you find warmth. The kindness of hunger softened by compassion. You recall stories from your childhood, perhaps of feasts and festivals, of meals shared with laughter and song. Those memories are distant now, like stars seen from beneath a cloudy sky, but even faded, they glimmer. They remind you there was once more than this. Some slaves, particularly those who serve in kitchens, speak in hushed voices of stolen flavors. A lick of honey from a spoon, a bit of sausage fallen to the floor. These are dangerous pleasures, taken with risk. But they are remembered with reverence, as if tasting joy for a heartbeat is worth the threat. Others find solace in routine. The same bread, the same sips of water, the same place beneath the fig tree or by the stable wall. Predictability becomes its own form of peace. You learn not to expect abundance, and in doing so, your definition of satisfaction changes. Sometimes you look at animals well fed, pampered, brushed by handlers and wonder at the strange twists of fortune. A prized horse might dine better than you. A villa dog may eat meat while you gnaw bread, but you do not dwell. To dwell is to break, and you cannot afford to break. There are whispered tales of slaves who found favor, who earned their freedom, who now dine with others as equals. These stories drift like smoke through the air, sweet and hard to hold. You wonder if they are true. You wonder if you might one day know fullness, again not just of belly, but of being. For now, you wipe your mouth with the back of your hand. You tuck the last crumb into your mouth and swallow it slowly. You stand, your tasks await, and still you carry on. Because you must. Because even in hunger, life goes on. Let us walk forward, dear listener. The day has only begun as your morning. Rituals give way to duty and movement. Your mind begins to drift in and out of clarity. The ache in your stomach mingles with the stiffness of your limbs, and a heavy, muffled sensation creeps into your thoughts. This is the fog of the quiet dulling of the senses that becomes the armor of survival. It protects you from the weight of despair, but also distances you from yourself. You move through routines you know so well they require no active thought. Your hands wash, lift, carry, polish, without conscious direction. The mental fog is neither sleep nor wakefulness, is a trance of obedience. It allows you to function without feeling too deeply. For to feel fully each injustice, each loss, each pang of hunger or lash of insult would unravel the thin thread of endurance. Sometimes, fragments of dreams linger. You may find yourself scrubbing a floor and suddenly remember the feel of your mother's hand as she led you through a field long ago, or the sound of birds from a homeland you no longer see in your waking hours. These memories are bittersweet. They keep your inner world alive. But they also hurt, reminding you of all that was taken. For many, mental fog becomes a form of refuge. In its soft haze, the sharper edges of reality are dulled. You do not flinch as quickly when scolded. You do not look longingly at the food prepared for others. You train yourself to glance but not linger, to notice but not react. In this way, the fog becomes your shield. But there are moments when the fog lifts in. Those are the most dangerous. A sudden kindness, a rare moment of music drifting from a villa courtyard, the laughter of a child, these can pierce the veil. In those moments, you are fully yourself again, not a body performing tasks, but a soul remembering joy, and it hurts. It hurts more than the beatings, more than the hunger, because it shows you what is still inside you, what the world keeps locked away. You may feel anger then, hot and helpless, or sorrow, quiet and overwhelming. You may have to turn your face, hide your expression, lest someone see and mistake it. For defiance, even emotion, is dangerous when you are not free. Among your fellow slaves, you sense the fog too. It lives in their eyes, in their measured movements, but within it, there is also resilience. People survive this way, not because they are weak, but because they must be strong in ways that are invisible to those who command them. On especially hard days, when punishment comes swift and without reason, when labor stretches long into the afternoon sun, the fog deepens. You become like the stone you scrub or the grain you grind, enduring, silent, unseen. And yet, within that silence, something still flickers. A voice, small and steady, that whispers, "I am still here." This voice is what you hold on to, even if you cannot always hear it clearly. It is what you protect with every breath, every silent step. The fog may dull your mind, but it cannot erase your being. There are nights when you lie awake, long after the fires have dimmed and the quarters have fallen quiet, and you wonder who you would be if you were free. What would your thoughts sound like, unburdened by fear? What dreams would you follow? What joy would you pursue? These thoughts are dangerous, but they are also precious. They are the last refuge, the unclaimed space within your soul. The mental fog may rise and fall like morning mist, but it cannot reach the deepest parts of you. So you move forward, dazed but determined. You do what is asked. You keep your head down, and somewhere inside you keep thinking, dreaming, waiting, because even when the world tells you otherwise, you remember you are more than what you endure. Let us hold that truth gently, dear listener, and carry it with us into the day ahead. Asterisk, the city falls behind you, its clamor fading into the distance as your feet press into the dirt path that leads toward the farmland. You are one among many, a silent line of human labor heading into the green and gold sprawl beyond the walls. Some still rub sleep from their eyes. Others walk in silence, already preparing their minds for what awaits. The fields are vast, sun-drenched, plains that stretch to the horizon. They belong not to the people who till them, but to men who may never set foot in their soil. Wealthy patricians, absentee landlords, senators who speak grandly in marble halls, all of them prosper from the sweat of your brow. As you arrive, you hear the familiar sounds of tools being lifted, animals being harnessed. The scent of earth and manure fills the air. The ground is dry in summer, clinging to your sandals in powdery clouds. In spring, it sucks at your feet, heavy and wet with rain. You learn the moods of the soil as you learn the moods of your overseer, watching, always waiting. Today, you may be planting seed in furrows, or harvesting wheat with a curved blade, or perhaps pruning olive trees beneath the sharp buzz of cicadas. The labor shifts with the season, but the demand remains the same. Work until your hands ache, until your back bends, until you forget the shape of your own thoughts. There is little talk as the day begins. The work is too loud, too consuming. The rhythmic sound of tools biting into earth, the creak of wooden carts, the soft grunts of effort, all of it becomes a kind of music, a dirge of industry. You lose yourself in it, let it carry you forward. The sun rises higher, its heat is merciless. Sweat trickles down your spine, collects at your brow, makes the coarse fabric of your tunic cling to your skin. There is no shade, save for what a wide-brimmed straw hat might offer, if you're fortunate to have one. Often you do not. Your skin burns, your eyes squint, and still the work goes on. Some among you are younger barely more than children. Others are older, their bodies weathered but still summoned to the field. The pace does not slow for age or frailty. Here you are measured by what you produce, not by what you suffer. The overseers patrol on horseback or on foot, eyes sharp for any sign of slowness or disobedience. They carry whips, and they are not hesitant to use them. But sometimes punishment is quieter, a denial of water, an extra shift added in the heat, a night without food. Pain comes in many forms, yet even here, small moments of grace survive. A fellow worker might share a moment's shade behind a wagon, a crust of bread passed from hand to hand, a brief exchange of humor, muted but heartfelt. These are not grand gestures, but they matter. They are the threads that hold the fabric of dignity together. You notice the creatures around you, toother, birds pecking at the scattered grain, the lizards sunning on stones. For a moment, you envy them their freedom, their instinct-led lives, untouched by chains. But you also feel a kinship. They, like you, are simply trying to survive. And so the day stretches onward. Your muscles burn, your throat aches for water. The sun climbs past its zenith and begins its slow descent. But still, there is more to do. The fields demand everything. They always do. Let us pause here, dear listener. Let us stand at the edge of the wheat, the wind rustling through it like whispers. Let us feel the sun, not as warmth, but as a weight. And let us remember that behind every loaf of bread in Rome, there are hands like these, calloused, trembling, enduring. While some walk miles to toil under open skies, others begin their day, ensnared within the labyrinth of Rome's stone and smoke. You, today, are among the latter. Your path leads not to the countryside, but deeper into the city, into the bustling heart of commerce, craft, and clutter. The city wakes with you, rising in layers, shopkeepers unlatching wooden shutters, bakers feeding their ovens, the clang of metal on metal as blacksmiths begin their first swings. You are not one of the artisans, but you may assist them lifting, hauling, running errands through alleys choked with carts and shouting men. If you belong to a household within the city, your tasks are many and constant. Cleaning floors before the patrician family rises, fetching water from the public fountain with a heavy amphora balanced on your shoulder, carrying goods from market stalls to the villa kitchen, each act unseen, yet essential. There is no moment of quiet here. The city demands your energy just as the fields do. The streets are narrow, their paving stones slick with last night's refuse and early morning spillage. You step around waste, dodge the wheels of passing carts, slip through throngs of bodies with practiced agility. No one pauses for you. You are a part of the city's machinery, oiled in sweat, running always. Your hands know the feel of broom handles, of worn leather sandals thudding across uneven stones, of calloused fingers gripping baskets filled with meat or oil. Sometimes you serve in a shop, standing for hours to greet customers who will not look you in the eye. Other times, you were sent on errands across the city, your master's ring or token, strung around your neck to prove your identity. There are moments when you glimpse wealth so grand it dazzles you, a mosaic floor gleaming in candlelight, a silk curtain swaying with the breeze, the scent of spices you've only ever carried, never tasted. But such moments pass quickly. A snapped command returns you to your task. You are not here to admire. Urban labor is no less brutal than rural toil. It wears differently on the joints from lifting, on the lungs from soot, on the nerves from constant noise. The city is alive, and it presses in from all sides. There is no horizon here, only walls. You may be sent to the baths, not to enjoy them, but to clean them, to scrub marble smooth under the laughter of others. You may tend to a noblewoman's child, not your own. You may kneel in kitchens, so hot and smoky your eyes burn before your shift has begun. In the slave markets, the city's newest arrivals are lined up for sale, their eyes vacant or fierce, depending on how recently they were taken. You remember your first days here, how the city seemed like a monster with too many mouths and never enough food. Now you are simply part of its breath. Still, as in the fields, small kindnesses find root. Another slave helps you carry a heavy load. Someone saves you a bite of pear, snatched from the waste bin of a merchant's feast. A stranger shares a joke, and you laugh quietly, briefly, remembering what joy felt like. Your feet ache by midday. The soles of your sandals are worn thin. The city heat rises from the stones, baking everything above it. And yet, the work does not stop. You move from villa to shop, to forum, to bathhouse. You sweat, you endure. Sometimes, in the quiet moments, a breath before a door opens, a pause before your name is called, you find yourself staring up at the sky between rooftops. The sliver of blue looks soft, kind. You imagine it stretching far beyond the city, into places where your name might mean something, where your labor might be your own. But the noise returns, and the task resumes. You do not have the luxury of lingering. So, dear listener, we walk now through Rome's winding streets with you. We feel the stones underfoot, the sweat on our brow, the heaviness in our limbs. And we remember that, even among crowds, even in constant motion, one can feel very much alone. Not all toil is anonymous. Some are trained for specific skills, chosen or forced into roles that require aptitude, discipline, and time. You may be one of them, a cook, a clerk, a midwife, a pedagogue. You may even be one of the rare few taught to read and write, to handle tools with artistry, or to serve the intimate needs of the elite. These roles are no less bound by chains, only different. In texture, if you are a cook, your world is the heat and chaos of the kitchen. You rise before the household to light fires, clean cauldrons, sort ingredients. Your hands are burned, your arms scarred. Yet within this labor, there is precision. You know when the lentils need more garlic, when the bread is perfectly golden. You never taste freely, you never dine, but you create. That act, small though it may seem, is an offering of self. Perhaps you are a scribe, seated in the shadows of a master's study. You copy letters, calculate expenses, manage correspondence. Your ink-stained fingers are considered valuable, not you, just your hands, your fluency. To err is to be whipped. To be accurate is expected. Your thoughts are not your own, but the structure of sentences becomes a silent rebellion. You insert no errors, but you take secret pride in the elegance of your script. If you work as a teacher, you instruct the children of others in language, poetry, arithmetic. You hold within you a world of knowledge, yet your status is beneath even the smallest citizen. A young boy might slap your hand, sneer at your words. Still, you teach, because knowledge must be passed down, because it gives you a flicker of purpose. There are artisans too, slaves trained to carve marble, to forge jewelry, to weave fabrics of breathtaking intricacy. Their hands produce beauty that may grace temples or be worn by senators' wives, yet their names are forgotten. The statue's grace is praised the maker, invisible, and there are those whose skill is their body. Dancers, musicians, courtesans, trained in elegance, grace, allure. They perform for laughter, for applause, for private company. Their labor is no less real, no less consuming. It is simply veiled in fragrance and costume. But behind the paint, the song, the silk, is the same soul yearning. Enduring. To be a specialty slave is to be close to power, yet never hold it. You may dine in silence beside your master, listen to politics debated in whispers, watch decisions shaped that could change lives. You are a vessel, filled and emptied by command, and yet, within these roles, some find flickers of selfhood. The act of making, of guiding, of shaping it roots you to something real. Even as you bow, you are not erased. Even as you obey, you remember your name. So let us linger a while in the hush of the scriptorium, in the dance of spices across a hot pan, in the hush of a loom weaving silk. Let us remember that skill does not mean freedom, that intelligence does not guarantee respect, but that even in servitude there are moments precious and real where the soul shines through the task. The overseers are everywhere, and their watchfulness is not always loud. A raised eyebrow, a sharp glance, a subtle shift in posture, these cues are as powerful as the crack of a whip. You've learned to sense their mood by the sound of their boots, by the way they lean against a doorway or stand with crossed arms. You know when to hurry, when to quiet your voice, when to disappear into your task. Some masters are lenient, some brutal, and some wear masks of kindness that are unpredictable. A smile can vanish in an instant. Praise can turn into accusation. One day's favor can become tomorrow's punishment. You navigate this unpredictability like a sailor reads shifting winds carefully, instinctively, always on guard. Other slaves may report you, too. Some do it from fear, others for small privileges, an extra portion of food, a lighter task. Trust is hard-earned and easily broken. You speak in coded language. You trade glances, not gossip. Secrets are treasures guarded with a tight grip. And yet, despite all this, the human heart yearns to connect. You still whisper to a friend when the overseer's back is turned. You still share laughter when the danger feels distant. You still dream aloud, cautiously, when the stars are your only witnesses. These moments are not foolish, they are necessary. Without them, you might forget who you are in the grand villas. Some rooms are watched by servants planted for just that purpose. The master's eyes and ears are not confined to his head. They are scattered through the household, listening, waiting. A misplaced word, a look held too long, and suddenly you are summoned, not always knowing why. Even your body betrays you. A limp noticed, a flinch misread, a bruise unexplained. These can all be cause for suspicion. The overseers are trained. not to see you as a person, but as a set of outputs to be monitored, managed, and corrected. You are not meant to feel, you are meant to function, but there are also quiet resistances. A task completed with subtle delay. A mistake that looks like clumsiness but hides intent. A stolen moment of stillness. These are your rebellions, tiny and sacred. Sometimes, to preserve a secret thought is itself a revolution. Even within the panopticon of slave life, you carve out corners of yourself that are untouchable. A song you hum only in your mind. A prayer whispered into your shoulder. A memory folded so deeply that no overseer could ever find it. So when you pass beneath a colonnade and feel the gaze upon your back, you do not stiffen. You continue. You make your movements fluid, efficient. You show what they expect to see. But inside, you hold something else, a piece of truth that remains your own. Let us move now, carefully, beneath these watching eyes. Let us practice silence and strength, and let us not forget that even in surveillance, the soul is never fully seen. Every hour of labor in Rome etches itself into your body. From dawn until dusk, your frame carries burdens: wood, water, grain, silence, fear. The human body adapts, yes, but at a cost. There is no rest long enough to undo the damage of days upon days of toil. Your hands tell the first part of your story, calloused, cracked, thick with grime that never fully washes out. Fingernails split or torn. Palms burn when they close around tools, yet they keep moving. For a field laborer, it is the grip that matters. Scythe, rake, basket. For a domestic, it is dexterity mending, torn garments, folding linen, holding trays steady through doorways where a stumble would bring punishment. Your back follows, next. Curved not by age, but by repetition. Bent in the same motion, day after day, lifting, reaching, stooping, crouching. The ache is not sharp, but permanent. Dull and ever-present, like a stone at the base of your spine. Sometimes you forget what it felt like to stand tall. Your feet are swollen, bruised, blistered. They carry you without complaint, but not without pain. Sandals, if you have them, are worn smooth, the straps knotted again and again. Many go barefoot, through heat, through cold. The stones of the street bite in winter, and in summer they burn. Muscles once lean with youth grow stiff, twisted by overuse. Knees crack, shoulders seize. If you fall ill or are injured, you often continue working because to stop is to become expendable. There are no doctors for you, no gentle hands, no rest days. You are treated with herbs by fellow slaves, if you're lucky, or ignored. Some injuries never heal. A broken finger set poorly. A limp from a sprained ankle long ago. A scar on the scalp hidden by hair. The body becomes a map of your survival, each mark a chapter in the story you do not get to write. And yet, it is not only the physical that bears the toll. The weariness seeps into your spirit, the dread of each new dawn, the knowledge that rests is never truly rest, only a pause, that even sleep might be interrupted. There are nights when pain wakes you before the morning bell. Nights when your limbs spasm from exertion. You lie quietly then, afraid to groan aloud, afraid to disturb others or draw unwanted attention. You breathe through the discomfort. You survive it, as you have every day before. Still, the human body is remarkably resilient. You learn to stretch subtly, to massage sore joints when no one is looking. You share remedies whispered from older slaves. Garlic for infection, vinegar for swelling, honey for wounds. These small acts of care pass down like lullabies, like heirlooms in a world where nothing is truly yours. You watch how others carry themselves, learning to disguise fatigue. You mirror the posture of those who earn fewer rebukes. You hide your wincing. You make your steps lighter, your breathing quieter, but the toll continues, and yet, inside, there is still something unbroken. Perhaps it is a memory, or a promise, made in childhood. Perhaps it is simply the stubbornness of life, the flame that burns low but refuses to go out. Your body may be bent, battered, even scarred, but within it, a spirit still walks forward. So let us walk now with you, not just beside your labor, but beneath its weight. Let us feel the throb of aching knees, the tightness of overused tendons. Let us acknowledge the truth. The human body can endure far more than it should ever be asked to, and still it does. Let us walk on asterisk. To exist as a Roman slave is to be reduced, your identity replaced by ownership, your rights erased by law. You are not a person in the eyes of Rome, not truly. You are a race, a thing, an object, a possession to be bartered, inherited, discarded. The law books speak plainly. A slave has no legal standing, no right to marry, to own, to speak freely. You are property, the same as a plow or a mule. You can be punished without reason. You can be sold at will. Your body belongs to another, and so, by their decree, does your fate. And yet, within this bleakness, you remain vividly human. It is a strange dissonance to know you feel deeply, think clearly, dream richly, yet to be treated as a tool. This dissonance hums beneath every gesture, every command. You nod when spoken to, not out of agreement, but necessity. You speak carefully, not to communicate, but to survive. If you are beaten, there is no court to plead your case. If you are wronged, there is no law to protect you. The master may be kind or cruel, capricious or consistent. It makes little difference in the larger truth. You are theirs, entirely. Sometimes this knowledge sits heavily on your chest, like a hand that never lifts. It makes you walk smaller. It makes your laughter softer, your silence longer. It rewrites the shape of your life into something obedient and careful. But sometimes it sharpens your will. You learn to see through the illusion of power. You notice how your master depends on you, how the household would falter without your strength. You begin to see the cracks in their grandeur, and within them you hold tight to your dignity. There are no formal ties between you and those you love. If you find someone and grow close, you are not husband and wife. You are simply two souls grasping at connection in a place where even that is questioned. If you have children, they are born into chains, not yours to raise freely, not yours to protect fully, and yet you love them fiercely. You cradle your child with trembling hands. You whisper lullabies into their ear. You protect them with every quiet act of care. The law may not recognize your bond, but your heart does. To live without rights is not to live without love, nor hope, nor pride. So you speak softly but truly, in moments stolen from the master's notice. You carry stories in your memory of ancestors, of gods, of better days. You pass them down like seeds, hoping they will take root somewhere, someday. Let us pause here, dear listener, and reflect on what it means to be human without freedom, to be alive without permission. And let us carry this awareness with compassion, for in every forgotten corner of history, there were voices that longed to be heard. Love, in the life of a Roman slave, is both defiant and fragile. There are no wedding ceremonies, no official betrothals, no legal vows exchanged beneath garlands of laurel. The state recognizes no bond between those in chains. What you find, if you are lucky, is not a sanctioned marriage, but something quieter, softer, a union. Perhaps you meet during chores, passing water jugs at the fountain, or gathering laundry in the courtyard. Your eyes linger a second longer than they should. Words are scarce, so glances must speak everything. Over time, you find ways to stand nearby, to work together. When silence becomes comfort instead of obligation, you know something real has begun, but you do not wear rings. You do not announce your commitment. There are no scrolls bearing your names, no priests blessing your bond. You are permitted to be near one another only so long as your master allows it, and that permission is not love, it is convenience. At any moment, you or your beloved could be sold, transferred, punished. There is no warning. One day you might rise with them at your side, and the next, they are gone. A cart rolled out at dawn, a contract signed, a door closed for good, and yet, against all this, you love. You share crusts of bread. You steal moments beneath fig trees and behind storage sheds. You whisper dreams in the quiet of night. You watch over each other's wounds. You protect, nurture, and grieve together. You raise children, even knowing that they too may be taken. You create a life inside the cracks of a cruel system. And that act, that insistence on feeling in a world that, once you numb, is radical. Other slaves watch you carefully. Some remember their own lost loves. Some fear what will come of your bond. Others admire your courage, your tenderness, your refusal to live entirely by the master's terms. You are not blind to the risks. If jealousy flares or your master grows displeased, your relationship might be used against you. You might be separated deliberately, your affection twisted into weakness. So you guard it fiercely. You speak little, but love deeply. Children born of such unions know this love. It fills their early days with warmth, even if their future is uncertain. You name them carefully, with meaning. You tell them the stories your mother once told you. You hold them tightly at night, memorizing their scent, their breath, their tiny fingers curled around yours. Sometimes, those who rule believe slaves are incapable of true loyalty, that without legal bonds, affection is shallow, but you know differently. You have seen devotion stronger than law. You have witnessed mourning so profound it silences entire rooms. And so, even without weddings, you pledge yourself, not before gods or magistrates, but in the daily acts of care, the mending of a tunic, the pressing of a cool cloth to a fevered brow, the shared silence of exhaustion at day's end. Let us honor that love, dear listener. Let us see it for what it is, not lesser, but enduring, not law-bound, but soul-deep. Imagine living each day with the knowledge that your future is not your own, that every aspect of your life, from where you sleep to what you wear, could change in the blink of an eye. You are not consulted. You are not warned. Your path is altered by the decisions of another, and you must follow without question. You could be sold tomorrow. That is the truth you live with, quietly, persistently. A single bad harvest, a shift in household fortune, a master's whim. These are the winds that carry you from one life to another. You might have just fallen in love. You might have just begun to know peace in a place. But those things do not weigh against the scales of commerce. The auction block is a memory that never fades. If you have stood upon it once, bare feet on splintered wood, You remember the feeling of eyes judging you, not your character, but your teeth, your posture, the firmness of your limbs. You are priced like livestock. The men who examine you speak as though you cannot hear. Sometimes they even joke. You do not know where you might end up. A merchant's villa in the hills, a tavern in the city, a galley in a far-off port. There is no pattern, only uncertainty. You have seen friends vanish overnight, taken with barely a farewell. You have watched families torn apart without ceremony. You learn not to grow too attached, but you do, of course, because you are human. Even within a single household, your fate is not fixed. The master might decide today that you will serve indoors rather than in the fields. He might give you as a wedding gift to a cousin, or send you with a letter to the provinces and not call you back. If he dies, his will may divide you among heirs like spoils. Sometimes there is talk among the slaves, hushed rumors of who might be moved next, of which child the mistress favors, of who has fallen out of grace. You listen, but you never know for sure. The decisions arrive without warning, without appeal. This lack of agency is its own kind of sorrow. It presses on you like a weight knot, always heavy, but always present. You cannot plan, you cannot hope in the ordinary ways. Instead, you survive in the present. You make do with the moment before you, but this too breeds a quiet strength. You become nimble, emotionally resilient. You learn to adapt swiftly, to find purpose in each small task. You discover how to carry yourself with grace even when you feel powerless. Still, the dream of choosing your own path never dies. It flickers within you, even when buried. Sometimes, in sleep, you walk roads of your own making. Sometimes, you whisper a plan to a trusted friend. A what if, a someday. To have no say in your fate is to live always at the mercy of others. But it is also to find your dignity in the choices that remain, to show kindness when you are shown none, to hold your ground when you can, to remember who you are, even if no one else does. Let us remember this truth, dear listener, that though the world may have turned its back, though power was stolen and futures erased, still they dreamed. Still they hoped to be a slave. In Rome is to live beneath a sky without shelter. There are no rights to shield you, no court to hear your plea. If harm comes whether from a cruel master, a spiteful overseer, or the careless whim of a stranger, it is absorbed in silence. In Roman law, your suffering is not a concern. If you are injured, the master may seek compensation, not because you were hurt, but because his property is damaged. If you are killed, the crime is one of theft, not murder. There are no trials for your grievances, no appeals. Pain, fear, and injustice are facts of daily life, endured without redress. Punishments may come swiftly and without cause. A dropped dish, a slow response, a glance held too long. And they are not always physical. Some are denied food. Others are isolated, humiliated, made examples. The lash is common, but so too are chains, brands, stocks. Each mark tells a story, but no one is required to listen. Some masters pride themselves on being benevolent. They do not beat, they do not starve, but even in these households, there is no true safety. At any moment, kindness can be withdrawn. Mercy is not a guarantee. It is a favor, and you must earn it again and again. You cannot defend yourself, not in the way free men might. You cannot speak freely, cannot push back, cannot demand fairness. If you are falsely accused, your voice may not even be heard. Others will decide what is true. Others will decide what is just. Even illness offers no reprieve. You may be expected to work while feverish, to rise with aching limbs, to serve without pause. Only when you collapse might someone take notice. Even then, only to calculate what is lost in productivity. And still, you carry on. Not because it is easy, but because the human spirit does not extinguish so readily. You find ways to protect yourself emotionally, socially, even spiritually. You form quiet alliances. You tread lightly around volatile moods. You learn who to trust, who to avoid, when to speak and when to fade. There are moments of quiet rebellion, too. A refusal to show pain. A silent vow not to weep. A steady gaze that says, "You do not own all of me." These are small resistances, often unnoticed, but deeply powerful. Even the gods, it seems, offer little protection. You may pray, and often do, but temples do not open their arms for you in the same way. Your presence is tolerated, not embraced. And yet, you light your lamp, whisper your plea, kneel in the shadow of statues, because the soul must reach for something higher, even when the world feels low. Let us not look away from this truth, dear listener. Let us honor the resilience it takes to survive in a life where protection is absent, where justice is denied, and let us carry forward the memory of those who endured, not because they were less feeling, but because they were profoundly brave. Perhaps the cruelest part of slavery in ancient Rome was not the labor, nor even the pain, but the slow erosion of the mind. Day after day, you were told you do not matter, told in the way people look past you, in the way decisions are made over your head, in the way your thoughts and feelings go unacknowledged. This silence begins to echo within you, louder than any. You wake with the burden of dread, not just physical exhaustion, but a deep, soul-weary sense of being trapped in a life that offers no escape. Hope, once bright, dims with each passing year. It shrinks not with dramatic despair, but through the steady drip of monotony and control. Your joys must be small and secret. Your grief must be swallowed whole. The mental strain is cumulative. It doesn't always shout, it whispers. It creeps in like cold seeping through stone walls. You forget the sound of your own laughter. You struggle to imagine a future different from the present. You begin to question whether you ever had dreams at all, and yet your mind remains your own if. You can hold on to it. You cultivate a private world. Perhaps you recite poems in your head. Perhaps you replay memories from childhood. Like sacred tapestries you unfold in the stillness of night. Perhaps you speak to yourself, softly, to remember your voice. You find brief sanctuary in repetition, in knowing the order of tasks, in understanding how to move, when to speak, where to place your feet. Predictability becomes a bomb. It does. Not free you, but it offers something to cling to. Loneliness to gnaws at you. Even when surrounded by others, you may feel unseen. Your pain is your own, your inner world unshared. You may lie awake beside a dozen others and still feel like a ghost. Sometimes, this isolation becomes a kind of numbness. You move through the world like a shadow of yourself, and yet, the presence of others also saves you. A shared glance, a murmured joke, a comforting hand at the small of your back. These gestures remind you that you are still part of a human web that, somewhere beneath the silence, empathy breathes. For some, the strain leads to defiance, a refusal to yield inwardly, a fierce, if quiet, resistance that keeps the flame of identity alive. For others, it leads to retreater folding inward, a guardedness. Both are valid. Both are survival. You learn to live in fragments, to compartmentalize, to give away what is demanded and protect what must remain untouched. You become an expert in invisibility, in endurance, in patience, and within this structure you endure. Let us pause here, dear listener, and place a hand on the weary mind of the slave, not to pity, but to honor, to witness, to understand how heavy the silence must have felt, and how great the strength it took to think, to feel, to remember. Even in the harshest of lives, a smile can light the gloom like a flickering candle in the dark. Among the labor and command, there are glances, exchanged quick and quiet, yet powerful. Perhaps it is a young boy who helps you lift a heavy basket, or a girl who shares her shade on a sweltering day. These are not grand gestures. They are brief, almost imperceptible acts of solidarity. In a world where so much is taken, such moments feel like gifts. They remind you that not all is lost, that within the system that reduces you to a tool, your humanity still touches another's. One smile, one nod, one shared breath of stillness, and suddenly the burden feels a fraction lighter. There is a strength in kindness, all the more so when it cannot be expected. Among slaves, kindness flows in small currents. Someone holds a place for you in line at the fountain. Someone mends your torn tunic without being asked. These actions are rare, not because the will is lacking, but because time, energy, and safety are always scarce. You learn to smile in return carefully, respectfully, not to flatter, but to connect. The world may not acknowledge your personhood, but in that moment, another soul has dot. Let us pause here, dear listener. Let us savor that warmth, however brief. In the life of a Roman slave, such flickers are treasures. Among the many faces of servitude, there are those who stand a little closer to privilege, not safe, but noticed. These are the favored slaves, trusted by their masters, relied upon for their skills or discretion, perhaps even indulged with minor comforts. They may wear better tunics, sleep in quieter quarters, receive meat in their meals now and then. To be favored does not mean to be free. The chain may be velveted, but it is still a chain. The master may speak kindly, may grant small freedoms, but the power dynamic remains ever present, unshakable. At any moment, favor can falter. One misstep, one shift in household mood, and all that was given can be taken away. Still, favor provides relief. It means fewer beatings. It might mean moments alone, or access to books, or duties that require thought rather than brute strength. You may feel a kind of pride in your work, a sense of worth, though tempered always by the knowledge that it is conditional. The favored slave often walks a narrow ridge, too distant from the others, and mistrust brews. Too close, and the favor itself may be jeopardized. You learn to balance, to read faces quickly, to speak carefully. Your loyalty must be evident, but never obsequious. Your competence must shine, but never outshine. Sometimes, the favored slave becomes a confidant. The master might talk freely, unburdening fears or ambitions. You nod, you listen. You offer no advice. Inside, you weigh every word, every silence, knowing that knowledge is both a gift and a danger. And yet, in this strange space of closeness, a kind of humanity reasserts itself. You are seen more often, addressed by name, trusted, even admired. It is not equality, but it is visibility. In a world that tries to erase you, this recognition matters. But even the favored ones carry sorrow. They are not exempt from separation, from the sale of friends or lovers. They are not immune to longing, and they are not blind to the bitterness in the eyes of others. Those who labor harder suffer more, and yet are offered none of the same mercy. The kindness shown to you, if you are favored, becomes a burden of its own. It demands you prove yourself constantly. It tempts you to forget the truth of your condition. It isolates even as it elevates. Still, a softer bed, a warmer meal, a day without pain, these things matter. They are real. They can be clung to. Gratefully, let us hold this reality with nuance, dear listener. Let us see how kindness, even when unevenly distributed, can still offer balm. Let us remember that favor, though flawed, may be the only gentleness some ever know. Even the harshest life is occasionally touched by celebration. For the Roman slave, these moments arrive like scattered stars, brief, bright, and gone too soon. Festivals bring music to the streets, colors to the market stalls, a strange lightness to the city's pulse. And while they are not truly meant for you, you live in their echo. Saturnalia is the most anticipated of all. It is a festival of reversal, of misrule. For one day or sometimes several slaves are permitted to speak more freely, to dine at the table, to wear their master's clothes and jest without fear. It is not true freedom, but it is a glimpse, a performance of equality that, for its very falseness, underscores how deeply real inequality runs. And yet, it is something. You laugh, you eat better than usual. You wear a borrowed tunic, perhaps, or drink watered wine with friends. The boundaries blur, and for a moment, you can pretend that this is not temporary. Pretend that laughter will not fade. Pretend that respect can last. During other festivals, Floralia, Lupercalia, Consualia, the city hums with joy. There are parades, games, sacrifices, performances. And while you may be working behind the scenes, preparing foods or tending fires, you still witness the revelry. You steal glimpses of dancers, catch melodies in the breeze. If your master is generous, he might allow a small portion of food to be shared among the household staff. A fig tart, a piece of meat, a cup of wine. These are morsels of the extraordinary treasures, not just for the tongue, but for the soul. On these days, the world feels softer. The rhythms of hardship are interrupted. You see other slaves smiling, more openly, walking a little taller. Even the overseers sometimes relent, caught in the haze of holiday leniency. For a few hours, the weight lessens, but the days pass quickly. The costumes come off, the laughter settles. You return to your usual tunic, to your place on the floor, to silence. And yet, you carry something with you. The memory of cheer, the taste of joy, the knowledge that even in the most constrained of lives, moments of levity can bloom. So let us remember, dear listener, that even under empire, even within chains, the soul turns toward the light dot in thee. Hush of heavy days, there is one sound that cuts through the weariness like a spring breeze laughter. Not the forced amusement of flattery or the bitter chuckle of despair, but the clear, bubbling laughter of children. Among the youngest slaves, even those born in bondage, there is still play. They chase each other between chores, tumbling over dusty paths, creating games from scraps of wood or cloth. Their joy is not ignorant, is resilient. Children sense the weight of their world, but they have not yet been shaped by it fully. They find delight in small freedoms, a beetle caught and studied, a melody hummed while grinding grain, a game of mimicry played in the shadows. When you hear it, this laughter, your heart softens. It reminds you of something older than Rome, something universal, the simple purity of a child's joy, born without permission and needing none. You may smile to yourself as you pass them. You may pause, just for a moment, to watch. Even the overseers sometimes allow this, perhaps, because they too remember laughter, or because the sound does not disrupt productivity. There are no toys, no swings, no books, but there is imagination. A pebble becomes a hero. A chicken feather becomes a crown. You look at these children and feel both sorrow and hope. Sorrow because their innocence is fleeting, and because you know what awaits them. Hope because, despite everything, they laugh. Despite chains, despite hunger, despite shadows, they laugh. Some among you take special care to protect this light. An older woman sings songs from her homeland to the little ones while weaving. A stable hand carves simple figures out of wood and gifts them quietly. You guard their dreams, because even in a world that has stripped you of so much, you remember. Your own, when you lie down at night, that laughter lingers in your memory. It softens the ache in your muscles. It quiets the heaviness in your chest. It is a reminder that joy can survive even here. So let us carry that sound with us, dear listener. The laughter of children ringing like a bell through the dust of hardship. Let it echo in our minds as a testament to the enduring light of the human spirit. Even in a world built on silence and servitude, stories live. They whisper through corridors, echo in kitchens, and flicker like hearthlight in the quarters at night. These are not tales of gods or emperors. They are stories of people like you. People who endured, who outlived their chains, who found slivers of freedom or glimpses of dignity. There's the story of Tiro, once a secretary to Cicero himself. Bright, articulate, clever beyond measure. Though born a slave, he earned trust through skill and loyalty. Cicero eventually granted him freedom, and Tiro went on to preserve his master's writings. Some say we remember Cicero because Tiro remembered him first, or the baker's boy, whose name is forgotten but whose legacy remains in the carved graffiti of Pompeii rude drawing, perhaps, or a witty phrase. He was someone's friend, someone's brother. His mark on the wall is small, but it declares, I was here, I lived. Then there's the older woman whose wisdom guided an entire household. Though technically enslaved, her presence was essential. With secrets, asked for counsel. When her master died, she was granted her liberty. She stayed, not from fear, but from choice. Her life, finally, was her own. These stories are passed from mouth to mouth, like water between cupped hands, sometimes true, sometimes embellished, always needed. They offer hope not in great revolutions, but in small victories. A child raised to adulthood, a man allowed to marry, a woman who sang her songs to the end. Hope lives in these stories, not the loud hope of speeches, but the quiet kind, the kind that sits beside you in the dark and stays. You tell these stories to each other after the day's work is done. You murmur them like prayers. You remember the names or invent them to keep the memory whole. They are not part of official Roman history, but they are real in the only way that matters. They are carried in hearts. Let us carry them too, dear listener. Let us honor the courage it takes to believe in something better, even when everything around you says not to. Disobedience in the world of Roman slavery is not met with negotiation or understanding. It is met with pain. The lash is ever present, hanging from a wall, coiled at a belt, always nearby. You hear it in your memory, even before it strikes. Leather against skin, again and again, until the lesson is learned. Sometimes it is done publicly, other times behind closed doors. Either way, the intention is clear: to dominate, to diminish, to control. A mistake, a delay, even an imagined offense, these may be enough to earn a whipping. And if the master is especially cruel, the punishment might be ceremonial, a display, a message to others. Branding is a more permanent sentence. A mark pressed with iron, often on the forehead, collarbone, or hand. It declares your past attempt to flee, your supposed disobedience. You are no longer just a slave, you are a marked one. The scar becomes your story. It follows you from master to master, from city to city. For many, these punishments are not just pain, they are rich fear. You learn to listen for certain footfalls. You memorize the sounds of anger. You predict moods, avoid eyes, speak only when summoned. Your instincts sharpen into a constant readiness to dodge, to duck, to disappear. And yet, in these darkest moments, something incredible happens. You survive. You grit your teeth. You weep where no one sees. You remember who you were before the pain, or who you want to be after. Some carry their scars like shame, others like armor. All carry them. Because in Rome, the whip is not just an object, it is part of the order of things. Let us not look away from this truth, dear listener. Let us bear witness to the cruelty, so that we might better understand the strength it took to endure it. Perhaps nothing symbolizes the public weight of slavery quite like the iron collar and unyielding loop fastened around the neck, inscribed with humiliating messages. These were not only tools of control, but announcements. To wear such a collar was to be declared, "I am not free, and I must not be trusted." The inscriptions varied. Some read, "I have run away, turn me to my master," followed by a name and address. Others bore instructions in crude Latin, often in jest, degrading the wearer. The collar could not be hidden. It was designed to be seen, a permanent signpost of shame and surveillance. To wear it was to carry your failure or your resistance, depending on one's view on your shoulders. If you had once fled, this was your penance. If you had angered your master, this was your punishment. For some, it was a lifelong sentence, rusting slowly against skin. The metal chafes. In the summer, it burns with heat. In the winter, it freezes. You learn to sleep with it, to wash around it, to bear the looks it draws from strangers. Some whisper pity, others laugh. Most simply look away. Wearing the collar changes how you are seen by others, not just freemen, but fellow slaves too. Some offer comfort, some distance themselves, fearing association, but all understand the collar's message. Your humanity has been further stripped. You are not just enslaved, you are suspected, shamed, other-ed. And yet, as with so much else, people endure. They joke about the weight. They find soft cloth to cushion it. They carve small marks inside the bandar tally, a prayer, a memory. Some even name their collar, turning it from curse to companion. You see a child with one and feel your breath catch. What rebellion did they commit? Or was it simply the whim of a cruel master? Injustice is rarely just. The collar does not always mark crime, it often marks independence, will, the refusal to submit quietly. Let us hold this image gently, dear listener. Not to glorify suffering, but to remember that even in disgrace, the soul continues. Even with iron round the neck, there is still a story, a voice, a pulse. Perhaps more insidious than punishment from above is punishment born from within. Among the enslaved, trust is a precious, fragile thing, and betrayal, whether real or rumored, haunts. Every whispered word, Roman masters understood this. They encouraged division, whispered rewards, set one slave to spy upon another. A servant who reported escape plans, stolen food, or merely sullen looks might be granted favor. A morsel of meat, a brief reprieve from the lash. Some were appointed as overseers, given authority to discipline their own kin. And so you learn caution. You measure your words. You gauge silences. You feel out alliances with great care. Even friendships, long nurtured, may falter under pressure. For each person carries their own wounds, their own fears, and sometimes the weight of survival asks too high a price. You remember the boy who was caught listening to forbidden stories, and how his friend told the master to save himself. You remember the woman who vanished after a secret meeting, and how a new bracelet appeared on another's wrist. You remember that loyalty is noble but costly. Still, you do not retreat entirely. You need others. You need their help to carry water, to cover your shift when fever takes you, to share the last piece of bread. But you learn to trust slowly. You share truths in layers, and you keep a part of yourself tucked safely away where no betrayal can reach. This atmosphere breeds anxiety. At night, when the fires are low, you turn over conversations in your mind. Did you say too much? Did someone hear you? Is that why the steward looked at you oddly this morning? You live in the spaces between certainty, and yet, in this fear, you also find resilience. You sharpen your instincts. You learn the rhythms of others, their tells, their moods. You find strength not in isolation, but in discernment. Some find grace even in this. A friend who warns you quietly, a stranger who says nothing when he sees too much. Kindness survives, even under suspicion. Let us sit with this truth. Dear listener, that fear is not just what others do to us, but what it does to our bonds. Let us remember the courage it takes to love, to trust, even a little, in a world that punishes both. More terrifying than the whip, more enduring than the brand, is the ever-present dread of sale and separation. It can happen at any time. A quiet conversation in the atrium, a debt unpaid, a whim of the master, and your world is appended. You might be summoned, told to gather your few belongings. There is no farewell, no ceremony, sometimes not even a goodbye. A child taken from its mother, a husband sold to a farm 100 miles away, a girl purchased for her beauty and sent to a household unknown. These are not exceptions, they are common. The fear lives in your chest daily. Every time a guest lingers too long, every time a merchant visits the estate, every time your name is said in a tone you do not recognize. You keep your voice soft, your work steady, your hopes low. You live with one eye on the present and the other on the unknown. Bonds are formed in whispers, in hidden corners, because deep ties bring deeper pain when torn. Still, you love. Still, you risk connection, because the heart, even in fear, does not forget how to feel. Children learn early. They ask quiet questions. Will we stay here? Will we be together? You have no answers, only stories. Stories of those who found each other again after many years by a chance meeting in the market. Stories of those who never did. You know the pain of looking over your shoulder each morning, wondering if today will be the day you were sent away. Or worse, someone you love, and you learn to grieve without sound, to cry without tears, because sorrow to open invites suspicion, and because there is no justice to appeal to, and yet, somehow, you endure. You fold letters you'll never send. You remember faces you may never see again. You carry the names of your beloved like charms in your heart, and sometimes you dream. You dream of a world where people stay, where partings are not decided for you. Let us not underestimate this grief, dear listener. It is sharp, quiet, and daily. It is not only the loss of place, but the tearing of soul from soul. Let us honor the ache of those who stayed strong despite it. In the heart of the Roman world, fear was not merely whispered, it was carved into public memory. Executions were not only punishments, but performances. They were meant to display the power of the master, the fragility of the slave's life, and the terrible cost of defiance. Imagine being summoned to the forum, or perhaps to the courtyard of a villa. You know what you will see, but you go because you must. A fellow slave has broken a rule. Perhaps they stole food. Perhaps they fought back. Perhaps they ran. Whatever the reason, their punishment must be witnessed. Sometimes it is the cross, not just a tool of imperial vengeance, but a symbol of final submission. You watch your companion lifted, lashed, exposed to the sky. It is not quick. The suffering stretches, and the silence of the crowd is thick with dread. Other times, it is the arena. Death by animal. A spectacle meant not just to kill, but to entertain. You want to look away. You cannot. To look away is itself a kind of rebellion. So you watch. You imprint the image deep in your mind. Not because you are cruel, but because you are afraid. The message is clear. This could be you. Even lesser punishments be. Burnings, amputations are often carried out in full view. The intention is always the same, to destroy one so that others may obey. And yet, amid this horror, something extraordinary occurs. You do not forget the names of the punished. You say them softly when alone. You remember their laughter, their kindness, their face in candlelight. You tell others their story. You resist the erasure. Sometimes a martyr becomes a legend, a slave who defied the master and faced death with dignity. Their courage gives rise to hushed courage in others. The fire meant to consume them, instead, spreads light. But these moments are rare, and the fear is daily. You wake knowing that a misstep, even an accidental one, might end in your name whispered in mourning. So you walk carefully. You bow when needed. You say little, and you carry that quiet knowledge that your body is not yours, and your life is conditional. Still you endure. Still you live. Let us not turn away, dear listener, from these final shadows. Let us stand gently beside those who bore them. Let us see not only the cruelty, but the quiet defiance that comes from remembering. Let us walk on ** in the flickering candlelight of Roman life. There exists a rare and tentative path out of bondage manumission. The word itself carries a whisper of hope, a murmur of change. It means to be set free, to step out of the shadow of another's ownership. But such steps are few, and always watched. Manumission is not a right. It is a gift, a transaction, a strategic decision. It may be earned through years of loyal service, or granted as a dying master's gesture, or even purchased by the slave with savings collected in secret. The ceremony might occur at home, modest and quiet, or in a public space, surrounded by officials and scribes. A master might lead you before a magistrate and declare your liberty. A rod, the vindictor, may be laid on your shoulder, symbolizing your new personhood. There are documents, legal scripts, moments of stillness where your name is spoken not as property, but as a person. But freedom is not full freedom. A freedman remains bound to their former master, now their patron. You owe them loyalty, service, perhaps financial support. You carry their name as part of your own. You are watched, still. You are not entirely equal, and yet it is a transformation. You may marry legally. You may own property. You may vote, though not hold high office. You may wear the pileus, the cap of liberty, as a sign of your new state. You breathe a little deeper. You walk a little taller. But you never forget, because the price of manumission is more than coins. It is the memory of chains. It is the knowledge of who still lives within them. You might look back at the household where you once served. You might return, not as a servant, but as a client. Or you might leave altogether, seeking a fresh life in a different district, a quieter street, a shop of your own. Some freedmen become wealthy, others live modestly, but all carry a dual identity, part former slave, part new citizen. The scars may fade, but the story remains. Let us honor this difficult path, dear listener. It is not a happy ending, but it is a change. It is the moment when the door creaks open, even slightly, and a foot dares to step beyond it. For some, manumission does not come as a reward or a gift. It must be bought, and the cost is steep. Imagine, dear listener, scrimping for years, hiding coins in the lining of garments, bartering scraps, saving from a meager allowance. If one is granted at all, to purchase your own freedom is an act of quiet revolution, of planning within chains. You might be a skilled artisan, able to earn tips from outside work, or a trusted household servant whom visitors reward with coin. A portion, perhaps, is promised to you by a more lenient master, but each denarius is hard won. Each one carries the echo of labor, and always there is the risk. What if your savings are discovered and confiscated? What if your master changes his mind? What if you are sold before you can reach the required sum? Still, you gather, you wait. You hope when the day comes, if it comes, you bring your hoard, hands trembling. Sometimes a formal contract is drawn. Sometimes it is simpler. A nod, a word, a paper marked with a name. It is business, but it is life. The money leaves your hands, and something comes in its place. Personhood. You walk out, free in name, though the world does not always welcome you. You wear your past in your bearing. You have no family wealth, no education, no place in the rigid hierarchies. But you are free. You no longer must ask to leave a room. You no longer need permission to speak. And what you build, you build. For yourself. Some who buy their freedom return to help others. They shelter the runaway. They pay, in secret, for the freedom of a sibling. They offer bread, or work, or a listening ear. Others retreat, seeking peace. Some succeed. Many struggle, but all of them, all who purchase their freedom, carry within them a strength most never recognize. Not the strength to shout, but the strength to wait, to endure, to believe that one day the door will open. Let us honor them, dear listener, not just for gaining freedom, but for the patient bravery it took to dream of it. Freedom in Rome was layered, like a worn garment, liberating in some ways, restrictive in others. When a slave became a freed person, they stepped into a liminal space, no longer owned, but never fully equal. The society that accepted their service now eyed their presence with uneasy tolerance. As a freedman or freedwoman, you gained rights: legal marriage, property ownership, even the ability to engage in business. You might rise in wealth, especially if you had a valuable skill. Some opened shops, others became landlords, and a few amassed fortunes. The Roman economy, ever pragmatic, embraced ambition, so long as it knew your place. But your place was clear. You bore a social stain. Your status followed you like a shadow. You could not hold the highest political offices. You were tied by obligation to your former master, now your patron. You owed them allegiance, perhaps a portion of your earnings, and support in public life. The strings of servitude frayed, but they did not fully sever. Others reminded you of it too. Neighbors, clients, even the freeborn poor sometimes treated you with disdain. You were a libertus, not ingenuous. Your children would be freeborn, but you were of the past, a product of sale and labor. Clothing marked you. You might wear the pileus cap, a symbol of liberty, but many saw it as a badge of survival, not status. Freedmen's names revealed their history, part given by their former owner, part kept from their old life. The very language of identity was borrowed, and yet many walked with pride, because freedom, even constrained, was real. You could walk the streets without permission. You could eat what you chose, when you chose. You could shape your future, however modest. Freedwomen often faced harder paths. Their roles were limited, their freedoms scrutinized. Yet some succeeded. A few became priestesses or ran businesses with tact and wisdom. They held memory and aspiration together like thread through fabric. Among fellow freed people, there was community. Stories were shared, laughter exchanged, burdens understood. In the baths, in the marketplaces, in the tenement halls, you found each other. You offered jobs, or advice, or simply recognition. To be freed was not to forget, it was to live with memory and movement both, to honor what had been endured, and still to plant gardens, raise children, speak your mind. Let us reflect, dear listener, on this delicate truth, that freedom is not always bright and easy. Sometimes it is quiet, complicated, and carried with effort, but it is cherished deeply. Freedom in Rome was not a solitary affair, was deeply entwined with the structure of patronage. When a slave was freed, they did not walk away into anonymity. They became a client, bound by custom and obligation to their former master, now their patron. This relationship was both a safety net and a leash. The patron offered guidance, protection, and often helped the freed person establish themselves in society. A job might be found, a legal dispute aided, introductions made. In return, the client, now a libertus or libertoed loyalty. They might work part-time for their patron, contribute to their public image, or accompany them to civic functions. Every morning you would rise early and go to the patron's house. There you joined other clients in the salutatio, a formal greeting. You waited your turn to offer your respects, sometimes receiving a small sum of money, sportial in return. It was both ceremony and transaction, a way of being seen. The patron-client relationship had layers. For some, it was mutually respectful. For others, it was quietly resentful. You were free, yes, but still dependent, still obligated. You had left the kitchen or the fields, only to enter another kind of service. And yet, through this structure, many freed people navigated their new status. They learned the language of diplomacy. They built networks. They married, saved, raised children. Patronage became the scaffolding upon which they constructed possibility, but the power imbalance remained. A harsh patron could ruin you. A generous one might elevate you. Freedom was always colored by the influence of another hand. Some severed the bond, moved to new towns, or forged new lives among other freed people. Others remained close, especially if affection had once existed. It was not uncommon to see former slaves caring for their elderly patrons, blurring the line between duty and love. In this dance of gratitude and constraint, Roman society functioned. Everyone knew their role, and even as a freed person, your rise was watched. If you gained too much wealth, too much voice, whispers followed. Still, many succeeded. They built mausoleums with inscriptions detailing their journey. They sponsored plays, donated to temples, left behind names etched in stone. They lived and they left something behind. Let us pause here, dear listener, and consider the complexity of this tie. Not chain, not quite cord, but a binding just the same. Among the tombs and tablets of ancient Rome, one finds the whispered echoes of extraordinary journey slaves who became freedmen, and freedmen who became names etched into history. There is Tiro, the faithful secretary of Cicero, who not only gained his freedom but preserved the speeches and writings of his master for generations to come. His story is one of intellect and quiet persistence. His legacy, a bridge between servitude and the survival of thought. Then there is Trimalchio, a fictional character perhaps, but drawn with such vivid realism in Petronius's Satyricon that he reflects many truths. A former slave turned decadent host. Trimalchio's lavish banquets and over-the-top displays suggest both the dreams and insecurities of those who had tasted bondage and now sat beside nobility. Not all stories are grand. There are countless modest epitaphs to my beloved husband, freedman of Lucius. She lived a good life, a loyal wife, and earned her freedom with grace. These inscriptions offer windows into lives filled with both hardship and dignity. They are not emperors or senators. They are people who rose from silence. In the quiet hours of early morning, a former slave might open their shop, arrange their wares, and smile at the new day knowing that each coin earned is their own, each choice freely made. Some of them gathered with others, forming collegiate social clubs and burial societies that created community and continuity. In these groups, the freed found belonging. A few even bought the freedom of others. They remembered, as all do, what it was to wait, to hope, to endure. And for every story recorded, there are thousands untold names lost, voices faded, lives remembered only in the dust of stone. But we honor them too. Their very presence reshaped Rome, one act of perseverance at a time. So let us linger here a while, dear listener, in the glow of these stories. Let us feel the warmth of what it meant to rise, even from the depths. Let us imagine these lives not as relics, but as distant kin, whose courage speaks still across the centuries. The sun dips beyond the curved terracotta rooftops, its final golden rays stretching across the dusty courtyards of Rome like the fingers of a weary god. The market stalls close with the rattle of wooden shutters, voices dim, the scent of olive, oil, ash, and cooling earth lingers in the air. The city's pulse slows, but yours, dear listener, does not. You are returning now, though home is a generous word for what awaits. Perhaps it is a shared room above a bustling tavern, the floor sticky with spilled wine and old sweat, or a dark corner in the belly of a grand villa near the kitchens, where the air is thick with the ghost of fire and boiling fat. Maybe you descend into a cramped underground cell. Stone walls weeping moisture, the only light a sputtering oil lamp. There is no bed, only a mat, or a patch of floor made smoother by repetition. A blanket perhaps, if winter is near and the master has not forgotten you entirely. No privacy, no choice in where you lay your head or next to whom. The quiet is pierced by coughs, sighs, sometimes muffled sobs. Still, this is where you return, and return you do each night, because this is the rhythm of your life. Work and rest, command and compliance. The world is carved into hours that do not belong to you. But for now, as the sky purples and the last bird calls echo off marble columns, you have a moment, a sliver of time that is yours alone. Exhaustion settles in your limbs, heavy and certain. Your feet throb with the dull ache of ceaseless steps on cobbled stone. Your hands, blistered from coarse tools or hot water, tremble slightly as you lower yourself to the floor. Every movement feels like dragging the weight of your own shadow behind you. You have no energy left to speak, no strength to wish for more. The day has taken all but breath, and even that is slow, shallow. You do not undress. There is no night clothes, no warm basin, no ritual of comfort. You lie down in the garments of labor, the dust of the street clinging to your skin, the salt of sweat dried on your brow. Sometimes your body is so sore it forgets how to relax. You curl into yourself, a soft echo of the child you once whiffed. You remember being a child at all. All around you, others settle in. They too carry the hush of defeat. A few murmur prayers to household gods, or to deities long banished from the Roman pantheon. Some simply close their eyes without a word. The room is a symphony of exhaustion, creaking joints, shallow breathing, the shifting of weight on cold stone. Outside, in the master's chamber, a different kind of night unfolds silk sheets, soft laughter, honeyed wine. You hear none of it, and if you did, you would not dare envy. That world is as distant as the stars above the forum, yet still, in the quiet, a kind of peace flickers. Not comfort, but stillness. Not rest, but pause. And sometimes that is enough. You let your mind drift, not far, just to the edge of memory. To a field, perhaps, where you once ran barefoot, or to the sound of your mother's voice, or the feel of warm bread in your hand. These are not dreams yet. They are the soft things you bring with you into the dark. They are what make this space a storeroom, a cell, a corner feel, if only faintly, like something that holds you. Tomorrow you will rise again at the whip's whisper, but for now, for this moment between dusk and dream, you belong to no one, and so you sleep, dear traveler. You sleep not because you are ready, but because you must, because the night, like the day, makes no room for longing. The day may be done, but the body remembers. It remembers each jolt of labor, each misstep punished, each burden carried without complaint. And so, in the stillness of the evening, a second shift begins, one not of toil, but of quiet suffering. This is the hour of tending wounds. There is no physician, no healer with ointments or soothing balms. There is only you, and perhaps the kindness of a bunkmate who has not yet succumbed to sleep. You sit on the edge of your mat, or crouch beside a small water basin if one is nearby, and begin the ritual. Slowly, carefully, your hands, calloused and trembling, touch your own skin as if learning it anew. You lift the sleeve of your tunic to reveal a bruise, blue as the twilight sky. You wince as you prod it, checking, measuring, You dip a scrap of linen into cold water, or wine if there is any left over, and press it to the tender flesh. The sting brings breath between your teeth, but it is clean, it is care. Sometimes there is a gash sliced by a tool, or a careless order shouted in haste. You rinse it, you wrap it, you speak to it in your mind, not because it listens, but because someone must acknowledge it. You tell it to heal, to rest, to stay quiet tomorrow. Around you, others do the same. A woman mutters softly as she binds her knee. A boy, no more than 15, stares at the ceiling as an older man, perhaps a father, or merely a friend applies crushed herbs from a hidden pouch. These herbs were bartered 4 weeks ago, kept secret like treasure. They smell faintly of basil, and hope no one speaks loudly. Pain is too sacred. There is no boasting, no dramatics. Each wound tended is a tiny defiance, a refusal to fall apart. The light is poor. A single lamp flickers, casting shadows like ghosts on the wall. But you know, your own limbs by feel. You know where the back aches, where the wrist strains, where the shoulder knots from a day of lifting amphory or weaving fabric. If you are lucky, someone helps you. A friend who rubs oil into your back, whispering stories of rivers and fish from their childhood. Or a stranger who notices your limp and passes you a clean cloth without a word. These gestures are not grand, but they are enough. They remind you that kindness lives even here. And sometimes, dear listener, you help others. You press your hands to another's bruised spine. You dab gently at a wound. You share your threadbare bandage, not because you have plenty, but because they, like you, are still human. Because pain demands compassion. There are scars, 2 old wounds that never healed quite right. Raised lines along ribs, burn marks on fingers, an eye that doesn't open fully. These are stories no one tells out loud, but everyone reads, and always the fear beneath it all. That the bruise will be noticed by the wrong eyes, that the wound will fester, that weakness will invite punishment. And so you do not limp when the master walks by. You do not wince at dawn. You carry the body like armor, even when it cracks. Tonight, the tending is slow, deliberate. You fold yourself around the ache. You acknowledge what the day has done, and then you breathe, deep, slow, as if inhaling the softness of olive trees swaying in a breeze far away. This, too, is a form of prayer. You do not have bandages from temples, nor the salves of apothecaries, but you have patience, you have memory, you have the will to heal with what little you possess. And so the wounds are washed, the bruises seen, the pain held in gentle silence. You lie back down, not whole, but heard. Night has thickened, drawing its velvet curtain over the flickering embers of the Roman city. Somewhere above, the stars blink down, indifferent and distant. But down here, in the crowded shadows of a slave's resting place, something more fragile glows. Quiet voices, low laughter, memories turned softly in the dark. You do not speak much during the day. Words, like rest, are rationed. But now, with the tools laid down and the eyes of masters closed, a different kind of rhythm emerges. The hush of conversation, barely audible, winding between bunks and pallets. You turn your head slightly, catching a whisper, a chuckle, a sigh. He used to sing to me, someone murmurs into the dark. My brother, every night, same song. I can still hear it when I close my eyes. Another replies, what song? A pause, a low hum. A tune older than conquest, carrying no Latin at all, just longing. Some tell stories, not of now, but of before Rome, before chains. There's a girl with wide eyes who speaks of snowy winters in the mountains and her mother's bread baked over hot stones. A man with a crooked back recalls wrestling goats on green hills, the air full of time and mischief. No one interrupts. Even the cynics listen, for in these tales there is warmth, a stolen comfort passed between souls like coals beneath ashes. Sometimes the whispers are playful. I saw the steward trip on his own robe today, someone says, a hint of pride in their tone. Laughter rustles through the dark like wind through dry grass. It's quick, hushed. Laughter, here, must not wake the stone. Other times, the words are practical. A warning about a new overseer. A tip about an easier way to carry jars without bruising the hips. Survival, too, has its murmured wisdom. But most often, the whispers are small, just enough to be human. How old are you? Old enough to forget. Do you think they remember us? Who? The ones we left behind. Silence, then. Not everything is answered. You say little yourself. Your throat is tired, your mind drifting. But the sound of others speaking is a bomb. It reminds you that you are not alone, even here. That others dream beside you, remember beside you, ache beside you. And sometimes someone turns to you. A simple touch on the shoulder, a question that needs no answer. Just a voice saying, sleep well. In this small space between agony and sleep, you are seen not as labor, but as person. And so you close your eyes, your ears still half open to the breath and murmur of lives lived next to yours. You carry these whispers with you into dreams. Sleep comes softly, not in a rush, but as a gentle, creeping tide. The whispering has faded now, replaced by the deeper rhythm of breath, the shuffle of tired bodies adjusting to stone and straw. Outside, the moon glows faint behind a veil of clouds. Inside, darkness cradles you like an old, unspeaking friend. And when sleep finally takes you, it does not ask permission. It claims you all at once, not with violence, but with tender arms. In its embrace, the boundaries of pain dissolve. You float. You do not dream of where you are. No slave does not. Willingly, instead, your mind travels to places not allowed, not spoken of, not dared in the waking day. You see yourself as you once were, not the chattel of a Roman household, but a child beside a river. Your toes dig into soft mud. The water is cold, rushing around your ankles. You laugh a sound you have not made in years. Sound someone, a sibling perhaps, laughs with you. There are no chains, no harsh commands, just sun, water, sky. Or perhaps you dream of a life never lived, a life imagined so often it feels real. In it you are free, not just unchained, but free in thought, in movement, in heart. You walk through a small market square, baskets in your arms, choosing what to cook for supper. You sleep in a bed of your own choosing. You rise when the sun warms your windows, not when a whip cracks the silence. In dreams, the past is not dead. It lives with you. You see faces you've lost, your mother's hands sorting grain, your father's voice calling you from the fields. These memories hurt, but also heal. They remind you that once you were more, that within you still lies that self. There are other dreams, too. Dreams not born of memory, but of longing. You dream of a reunion not with a person, but with your name, your real name, the one taken from you. In the dream, it's spoken aloud, clearly, with pride. And you answer. Some nights, the dreams come in colors, gold fields, deep green forests, sky so blue it makes you weep, the scent of baking bread, the feeling of warm arms around your shoulders, a fire that belongs to no master, only to the night. You dream of speaking freely, of dancing, of choosing, of saying no, and sometimes you do not dream at all. Sometimes sleep is a black, soundless place, too deep for memory, too tired for longing. And that, too, is mercy, a blankness in which the self can rest, if only briefly. Yet always, the dreams, whether vivid or voider, precious, they are yours. No one can order them, chain them, steal them. They are the only part of your life not touched by command. And when you stir again, at the first echo of morning, you carry them with you. They nestle behind your eyes. They soften your gait. They give shape to hope. Not all slaves survive by strength alone. Some survive by memory, some by story, some by dream. And so you rest, not because the day is kind, but because the night just this once has let you go. And yet, even as sleep wraps you in soft shadows, a shadow of another kind lingers deeper, still settled behind the heart, curled beneath the ribs. It is the dread of morning, a weight pressing not on the body now, but on the spirit. You may sleep, yes, you may even dream, but part of you never fully lets go. Part of you counts the hours left until the sun returns. Part of you listens not just for footsteps or voices, but for what they bring. Tomorrow, you know what it will be. You can trace its path already. The crack of the lash in the yard, the cold splash of water to rouse you, the rough bite of sandals. On your feet, the call of duty before dawn. No day is new in this life. Every morning is a page rewritten with the same ink, the same hand, and so, even in the peace of rest, the dread whispers. It comes not as panic, but as certainty. It wraps around your sleep like a vine-settle, soft but unyielding. It reminds you that freedom, even in dream, is borrowed. Your limbs may find stillness, but your mind spins remembering where you failed today, wondering what will be expected tomorrow. Will your work be pleasing? Will someone notice the torn hem you could not mend? Will the overseer's temper be mild or cruel? The questions never end. They feed the dread. Others around you stir too. You are not the only one who does not fully rest. A man shifts in his sleep, murmuring an apology. In his mother tongue, a woman clutches her side, as if guarding herself from a blow not yet given. These are not restless dreams. These are the echoes of vigilance. For here, even the night has its expectations. You must be ready, always ready. Even sleep must prepare you. You try to fight it. You try to hold on to the dreams of rivers and freedom and bread warm from a stone oven, but the dread is stronger tonight. It seeps into those dreams, turns them bitter. You see the river dry up, the bread crumble to ash, the beloved faces fade. Still, you do not cry out. You do not weep, not because you are strong, but because tears are a luxury you cannot afford. They draw attention, and attention, in this place, is dangerous. So you lie still, your body an offering to the darkness, your mind curling inward. You think, perhaps, of time, how it moves, how it drags, how the same sun rises and falls over lives so different. You wonder if, in some distant room, your master lies awake too, but for different reasons. wondering about profit, politics, legacy, and you wonder only if you will endure. There is no answer in the dark, only the breath of those near you, the faint sound of a rat skittering through straw, the distant drip of water down a stone wall. You breathe, you try again. You gather what remains of the warmth in your chest and pull it close. Not all dread is defeat. Some is simply knowing. And knowing, strange as it may seem, is a kind of power. A candle in the fog, so you let yourself sink again into the dark, not because it is safe, but because it is what remains. And when dawn comes, as it always does, you will rise again. Asterisk, let us now sit together, dear one. In the hush of candlelight, we have wandered far and quietly tonight, tracing the worn steps of a life not our own, but no less human for its distance in time. We've felt the weight of labor and silence, the bruises of injustice, and the fleeting warmth of a smile shared in the dark. And now we rest here, at the edge of that story, not to turn away, but to remember. These lives we've glimpsed were not legends or abstractions. They were people, souls with aching bodies and boundless hearts. They endured not just for days, but for lifetimes, often invisible, often unheard. Yet even in the grip of bondage, their humanity pulsed on, in whispered lullabies, in stolen glances, in the memory of fields they once called home. Let us light a candle for them now, for the woman who cradled her own calloused hands after a day of toil, and still found the grace to tend another's wounds, for the boy who remembered his sister's song as he lay in the dark, for the old man who pressed his name into clay, hoping someone, someday, would read it aloud again. A single flame cannot undo their suffering, but in its glow, we promise something smaller and yet immense, that they will not be forgotten. To remember is to honor, and to honor is to begin to understand. In their stories, we find not only sorrow, but courage, not only hardship, but resilience. Their existence compels us to soften our gaze, to approach history and each other with tenderness. As you close your eyes tonight, carry them with you, not as shadows, but as ancestors of the human spirit. They teach us how deeply a person can suffer and how deeply they can hope. You have listened, dear one, with gentleness. You have walked beside the invisible, and for that, thank you. May you carry this story like a lantern in the dusk. May it remind you that kindness is never wasted, and that the softest voices are often the most enduring. May your night be peaceful, your dreams kind, and your soul ever free.